Think of OCD recovery a bit like passing an exam. Now, don't view it as a sort of final point that you've got to get to. Oh, when I get to that point, then I will be recovered like a finish line, because it's a sort of fading. It fades into position. You can't remember the specific day that you recovered. But think of it like an exam in this sense. If you are really, really knowledgeable on the subject that you are setting the exam for, and you go into that exam, you know, you've done the test so many different times online in different versions, you know it inside and out. Every question you've seen in some variation before, you're confident, you flow through it, and you know that you basically passed. Now, imagine you go into that same exam, but you don't know it. You've sort of winged it all the way. You've basically not been studying at all. You go in, you think, God, it's going to be a fluke if I pass. Hopefully the questions aren't too hard. Now, OCD is obviously a hard taskmaster. So it's obviously coming up with very difficult things. It's latching to all the hard things you don't want to. And it feels like going through levels of a game like Super Mario. And it gets harder and harder and harder as it morphs and finds things just out of reach of the exposures, just out of reach of what you've learned. And it does that, okay? And it waxes and wanes. It's not just hard, hard, hard. It's a sort of peaks and troughs cycle. Now, I want you to imagine that you're advanced, like the person going into the first exam example I just gave. You don't care, because you know that you've already passed. You know that it hasn't got a grip on you. You flow through it, right? Now, that would be me today. In my head, if I could put you in a sort of simulation in my head, there's no fear, thought, thing it could latch to in the past, fear, anything that I would think, oh my God, that's terrifying. I'm just completely stuck and not going to get better. That isn't the case. But along the journey, so many times, I was that person who was sort of just going about, I think I'm better, I've been good for a couple of months, hope it doesn't get me on that. Oh, I'm really there now, and then loads of false dawns. That's what OCD recovery has in it. So you've got to really think about that. You are trying to improve knowledge a lot. You are trying to put in lots of practice. And you want this. You want to recover. You don't want the life that you've had coasting in and out of OCD forums and anxiety forums for years, like most people with OCD. Most people with OCD are that person in example 2, just sort of winging it along. I hope I don't get stuck. I was all right last week before my holiday. You don't want to be in that position. You want position 1.